Still. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, everyone? Let's get this thing going. You know how we roll here. Mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, everyone? Get this thing going. You know how. Facebook, obviously, we're good. You guys are hearing. It's because I'm doing it, and I'm just making sure people are hearing it from my phone. So that way I don't run into the issue that I've had in the past where I do a whole show and don't realize till the end of it that it didn't record. The sound was off. Don't realize. All right, let's go. Let's go. You see the topic out here. Back for another Win-Trapreneur Wednesday. Win-Trapreneur Wednesday. You see what we doing. You see what we talking about. You already know what it's all about here. If it's your first time tuning in, let me just introduce myself to any newcomers, anybody that's new to the Move Swiftly world, new to this channel, new to what I'm all about. My name, Aswan Crookshank. I am your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time, soon to be 6-time published author and educator. I create a whole business, a whole brand, a whole philosophy, a whole mindset that's all about taking the innovative teamwork lessons that you learn on the football field and aligning them with businesses and business owners so they have a staff, they have a group of employees that moves just like, very much like a championship high school or youth football team. That's what we do around here in the Move Swift plus LY world. If you don't know what that acronym means, you will get today, you'll get a full breakdown of it. One of the facets of my business is every single Wednesday we do this thing called Win-Trapreneur Wednesday. I'll be explaining what the concept is in a moment here, but just know it's what the title of book number 6 is going to be all about. It's about taking that mentality, the mentality that you have as an entrepreneur, and aligning it with the mentality of having a job or having a vision, having a job that has a similar vision as your entrepreneur vision, as your entrepreneurial mentality. So at times I just talk about my experience as being a Win-Trapreneur, or there have been times where I feature other people, feature other coaches that I've had, feature other folks that have have had Win-Trapreneur values that have input on me or have had a profound effect on my life and what I'm all about. Today, we're talking about my favorite coach that I've ever played for. His name is Coach Bryant Davis. Coach Bryant Davis, who, as we're discussing this theme, all week, we've been discussing this theme of Black fatigue and what Black fatigue is doing, and this whole concept of race and using race as a way of making an excuse, and using race as an excuse of being lazy and staying in the comfort zone and all that. So now on this side of the week, we're going to talk about a solution. We're going to talk about a solution to this problem, this epidemic, this issue that we see. And one of the things that I learned from Coach Bryant, and then I'll get into the story a little later, I'm just kind of giving you a preview now, is Coach Bryant was all about raising men and teaching us as young men, hey, we are not victims, especially as young Black boys. We are not victims. We are not people that are, just have a bad angle in life. I mean, he would always tell us, man, I remember some speeches after games, he would be talking after the few times that we would actually lose a game. He would talk about how, there's kids waking up with AK-47s and things like that. Just, he would remind us on a daily basis how blessed we were to be young kids in the situation that we were in, where we're playing football and, we're out here enjoying, we're around family, we're around friends, and we're doing things that are conducive and productive to the community. So we're going to dive into all of that today as we talk about how we need to be solving this problem, right? We need to be solving this problem as leaders. We need to be solving this problem as business owners. We need to be solving the problem when it comes to how we go about managing the fact that Black fatigue is here, and Black fatigue, like I said, is not going anywhere. It's here to stay, because it's a mentality that has nothing to do at all with you being Black. It has everything to do with your ass just being lazy. All right. So before we get into all of that, let me get through some announcements here. Real quick announcements. First and foremost, if you have not yet, business owners, who I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve you all, here to, teach you guys how to make it so that staff, that group of employees is walking in and they are getting better every single day. I need you to go do free guide. This is a free guide. It's a free opportunity I'm giving you right now. freeguide.makeyourmove.com. I created a 10-step process that you can be utilizing right now that'll make it so your business or the people that are in your staff, the working business, is moving in a way that is conducive and it is cohesive. All right. freeguide.makeyourmove.com. It's a simple, very, very simple equation. It's establishing measurables plus a professional distance, and that creates the productive environment. Those are the two things that you need if you want to have a structure in your team. And obviously that's just the snippet of it. We'll dive deeper into all of that as we get to moving forward. And if you are ready to have me come in and speak and do what and start to implement my system in your staff, just go to makeyourmove.com. You can make the purchase right there. You can shop there. You can, have me come speak. You can do the research that you should be doing on me. All of that is available on the internet. All of the things that you would want to know about a person that you're thinking about bringing in to teach your staff how to be more motivated and how to teach your staff how to run it like a championship team. All of that is on makeyourmove.com. That is MakeYamove.com. All right, let's get to Coach Bryant. Let's get to the article, man. All right. So the article, Win-Trapreneur, know and make sure, and by the way, before I get into the article, be sure you are liking and you're commenting and you're sharing this video out for anybody that you feel like needs to hear this, because we do evergreen time. Yeah, there's a theme every week that's kind of based on what's relevant in the world, but everything I talk about is pretty much evergreen. Whenever you hear it, you can hear this now. I'm recording this in 2025. You're going to pick it up in 3025. It's going to be the same principles, the same understanding, the same things that are going on every single day. These are evergreen topics that we're discussing here on the Move Swiftly, whether you're listening to this on the Move Swiftly podcast or if you're watching me on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. All right. So Win-Trapreneur Wednesday, going right to the article, going directly to the article now, for my podcast listeners. All right. Win-Trapreneur, no N-words out here. A lesson from Coach Bryant Davis. All right, let me just break down the working title of this. No N-words. And you know exactly what I mean when I say no N-words. No N-words out here. A lesson from Coach Bryant Davis. The issue with Black fatigue, the issue and the problem that has crept into our system, that has crept into our subconscious mind is, number one, the usage of that word, the double standard of that N-word that gets used so much by people who are Black, people who are not Black, people who are trying to be of a certain Blackness. They've used the N-word has become some sort of barometer in terms of stop. I'm reading this text. The N-word has sort of come this barometer on if you're Black enough or how Black you are, how much Blackness you have. The N-word, and it's because the word has been used in a derogatory sense. Then you have popular, very famous rappers, people who have made millions and millions and millions of dollars by using that word in songs, and they've sold that word to the masses. They sold the word to the corporate money, and they've gotten their corporate money because they use that word in a way of endearment. Yeah, that's my N-word. My N-word is this, to the point where I'm of the generation. I was born in 1989. I'm of the generation where the word was very confusing. The word was very, my girl keeps sending me these messages. I'm trying to focus. The word was very confusing. The word was very confusing in terms of the time frame in which I grew up. All right. The word was very confusing because on one end, yes, you hear the word and you're thinking about you're thinking about your favorite rapper and a song you like. In fact, speaking of Coach Bryant in these days, we used to every game we used to. I didn't even plan on telling this story. It might take me off topic, but we used to listen a lot to this rapper named DMX. All right, it's like y'all my N-words, where my is that right? And so we used to listen to his song, jam to his song. In fact, it was the song what's the name of it? Drag on, do my bust they guns. Hell yeah, we bust our guns. Do we tell it? Riders gonna show your N-words who ride the best, right? Yeah. We used to be bumping that DMX. We used to be doing all of that, right? So you have the rappers who are, listen, I ain't gonna tell nobody not to make their money. However they make their money, they gonna make their money, right? So you have the rappers who are, using the word and they bob into it and everybody jamming to his album and all of that. And you had a coach like Coach Bryant who would be telling us, who would, give us the perspective and say, okay, that's how that man making his money, but I'm teaching you guys, we're not using the N-word out here when we're on the football field. We're not going to be using that word. We're not going to be just frivolously using that word and just saying it to anyone and all that kind of stuff. That's not what we're about when we're out here on the football field. All right. That was the difference between, and that's how we can begin to start to solve the problem of Black fatigue, is we got to understand the usage of not just the N-word, but just the usage of the way we're perceived, the usage of how we're thought of, the usage of what stereotypes we perpetuate and fall into, and what we're all about in terms of how we carry ourselves, in terms of the lessons that we give, in terms of all the things and the way we affect our younger generation. That's what it's all about. And I was blessed. I found out, I'm going to read the article. I'm going to get to the article in just a moment here, but based on the things that I now go through as a teacher, as an educator, and being around the majority of the students that I teach are young African-American boys and girls, hearing them talk and hearing them kind of explain things and the way they see the world. And a lot of these kids were, growing up in the summer of social justice, that 2020 summer where everything was Black Lives Matter this, Black Lives Matter that. They were very, very confused in terms of what real Black leadership looked like. Because I'll just tell you, Black Lives Matter is the horrible, horrible, horrible example of what Black leadership should be. All right. Black leadership has nothing to do with going and burning down Black-owned businesses and having riots and being assholes. That's not Black leadership. That was just anger and, frustration with something that they saw on the internet, really, pretty much, that some people saw on the internet. That's what it was. And the fact that it was COVID. But Black Lives Matter had nothing to do with real Black leadership. And you're talking about now, I'm teaching a generation of kids that were growing up during those times. This was 2020, the summer of social justice. Everybody wanted to be a Black leader. Every single person, every league and every corporate person wanted to, paint end racism on the court. I mean, I remember actually Ice Cube said this is back when I listened to the Pivot podcast, and this was before Ryan Clark's statements. And like I said on I actually commented on RG3's the post the video that he did about Ryan Clark and how he was like, he crossed the line. I commented on that. I said, I'm done listening to the Pivot. But back when I did listen to the Pivot, they had Ice Cube on there. And he was talking about the kind of the scuffle that he had between, he has the big three and the Adam Silver, the NBA and the big three. Apparently him and Ice Cube and Adam Silver or whoever the people running the NBA, apparently they had a little bit of drama back in the day when he was trying to collaborate on some stuff with the big three in the NBA. And Ice Cube said that, he said this on the Pivot. He goes, you can write Black Lives Matter on the court, but Black Lives Matter gotta be about what's in your heart. All right. You could put it on the court all day, but does it really matter in your heart? Does Black Lives matter in your heart? Right. See, that's the difference. And that's what these young kids growing up now, they don't understand that, because they're just seeing some bullshit, some adult acting like an idiot on the internet and burning down these black-owned businesses. And the person who took the money from Black Lives Matter, they went and bought mansions. You don't hear them when it's Black-owned. You don't hear them when we're trying to uplift our own community within our own people. You don't hear them do stuff like what Coach Bryant is doing. Like with the part that one of the videos that I actually watched this morning, because I knew I was going to be talking about this, was the fact that right now we are still honoring George Floyd as if he was a man that was an upstanding citizen. I remember having this conversation actually when this happened, and this was a client, this is back when I was training at 9 Round, it was a client who was a strong Trump supporter. All right. And she made the point, it was myself and the owner of the 9 Round. We were both black men who showed up to work every day, did our jobs. We're not out there, hustling, pushing fentanyl and, drug dealing, gang banging, none of that stuff. Me and the owner of this 9 Round, there's nothing, we weren't doing that. So the girl who was a client, she came in and she goes, look, are you ready to have a fired up conversation about this George Floyd thing? And then she broke it down like this. And I have to give her credit for this. I don't particularly like this. Me and her kind of had a falling out, but I will give her credit for saying this and pointing this out. She goes, the black men that need to be honored are men like yourself, men like, and she mentioned the owner's name was Ira, men like you guys who are out here every day putting in the work, not selling, not into drugs, not into gangbanging, not into thugging or anything like that. But right now, Black Lives Matter is almost like George Floyd is the representation of black people. When you dig into his history and what he's all about, he didn't do things that represent black men in the right way, yet we're still honoring him. And this is why this has to I have to talk about these things, because Coach Bryant is the type of black man that all of us need to strive to be. That's the example, not the example of someone that, you probably didn't hear about until, you saw the video of a cop kneeling on his neck. Now he's the representation of what every black man is all about and what he's all about. Now, listen, I value human life. I'm not going to sit up here and say he deserved to pass away. In fact, I wrote about this around that time is when I wrote this book. All right. Around that time is when I wrote this book. And I had mentioned, one of the reasons that I had to write this book, that I had to tell my story, I had to tell the experiences that I've had as a black man being racist, because of what was happening in the world at that time. But the more you dig into his history and the more you dig into a lot of the bullshit that Black Lives Matter created, you're going to see why it's important that we construct a plan, why we can't just go out there and cry racism and not actually look at ourselves and say, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing to make it so we are actually uplifting ourselves and recycling the black dollar, recycling what we're about and making it so we can support each other and help each other through a lot of difficult times, because all of us are going to need each other, and we don't have time to be, fighting each other over bullshit. All right, so let me get into it, because I'm gonna go into preacher as one mode real quick. regular consumers, no, I can get in the Pastor Oswald gonna come out on you every once in a while. You can come out on you every any time of day. All right, so here we go. Win-Trapreneur. No N words out here. A lesson from Coach Bryant Davis. All right. There's my guy, man. That was me right there, rocking that 5. This is before I switched my number to 44. I used to wear that 51, boy. That 5-1 out there representing that Coco brand down. And that's Coach Bryant right there, Coach Bobby. Actually, right there is my guy TJ. If you guys heard of the comedian, you probably heard of comedian Lou Young, the one he's always talking about TJ, and the one that does all the videography for him and all that. I remember he had mentioned, speaking of the pivot, I remember Lou Young had mentioned TJ on the podcast that he did with the pivot. It wasn't until he said that where I realized, oh shit, yeah, I remember TJ. We were teammates. That's him. He was the one wearing 44 before I grabbed 44. So that's it. Shout out to TJ, man. Shout out to TJ and Lou Young. I've been keeping up, been doing big things. But let's get into the article. All right, so. No N-words out here. Coach Win-Trapreneur Wednesday, no N-words out here. A lesson from Coach Bryant Davis. Reading directly from the article, podcast listeners. All right. By Aswan Crookshank, founder of the Move Swift plus LY, host of the Move Swiftly podcast. Yes. Another Win-Trapreneur Wednesday. And this one cuts deep. The question is simple. How do I, Aswan Crookshank, tie the concept of being a Win-Trapreneur with the rising conversation around Black fatigue? Let me show you. Not just with a theory, but with a story, a real one, about the best coach I've ever played for, Coach Bryant Davis. First, what's a Win-Trapreneur? A Win-Trapreneur is someone who has a strong entrepreneurial vision for their life and has been fortunate enough to land a job that aligns with that vision. something that pays every 2 weeks while still fueling your mission. That's what a Win-Trapreneur is, folks. All right. If you have a strong entrepreneurial vision about what you want to do, and when I say strong, I mean someone's actually giving you money for something that came out of your own head, then you have a strong entrepreneurial vision. All right. Hear me. That makes you an entrepreneur right there. Going from something in your head to it got created and then somebody paid you. It could be a fucking dollar. It could be a 25 cents for something that came out of your own head. If you're getting paid for something that came out of your own head, you're an entrepreneur. Lean into that. Lean into it. Lean into it. Lean into it. You will get respect. I don't give a shit how much money you got. Like I said, it could be $2, $3, whatever it is. As long as someone is paying you for something coming out of your own head, I swear to God, you're going to figure it out at some point, because there's no better feeling. There is no better feeling. Yes, sex is maybe a close second, but I'm putting this one above sex. All right. I'm putting it above sex, because if you're getting paid off your own thoughts, now you can, figure out ways to make money that is out of this world, to where you can have all the sex you want. But it's important that you recognize, look, if I'm getting paid but for something that came out of my own head, regardless of the amount, then you're winning. Do not ignore it. The more you ignore it, the more you go off into what somebody else wants you to do, and you start forgetting about the things that you're about. All right. Back to the article. All right. So a Win-Trapreneur is someone who has a strong entrepreneurial vision for their life and has been fortunate enough to land a job that aligns with that vision, something that pays every 2 weeks while still fueling your mission. It's not a side hustle. It's not a dream deferred. It's a lifestyle that marries purpose with paychecks. Hear me now. Say it for the people in the back. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that marries your purpose with your paycheck. Your purpose, 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 your purpose, your purpose. Your paycheck, your paycheck, your paycheck. Did I say it enough? Your purpose isn't some Gucci Fendi bag. Your purpose isn't you in the club buying bottles every week. Every time you get your check, you spending it all on Jordans and stuff. Your purpose. What is that shit, man? Your purpose with your paycheck. That's what it's all about. All right. So, and I am one. Again, back to the article. Again, let me get a sip of water, because I'm getting fired up. Okay, I got a sip of water. I'm calm. Just bear with me. I just finished my cup of coffee. And this topic always gets me fired up. So it's not a side hustle. It's not a dream deferred. It's a lifestyle that marries purpose with paychecks. And I am one. When I say I am one, I'm talking about I am a Win-Trapreneur. I'm the ultimate Win-Trapreneur. All right. So back to the article directly. Here's what got me on this topic. So currently, I teach at a K-5 school. Ironically, I was around the same age, 5th or 6th grade, when I first met Coach Bryant. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was 6th grade. Yep, it was exactly, because 5th grade, the coach that I had before him, he had passed away during my 5th grade year in elementary school, and then Coach Bryant came. So I was actually in 6th grade. It was that fall of 6th grade when I just started middle school. So I'm literally at the age of some of the kids that I'm around, the 5th graders that I teach now, right? So when I first met Coach Bryant, just a few weeks ago, all right, so let me reread that, because that might have confused some of you guys. So I'm reading directly from the article now for anyone listening to this on the Move Swiftly podcast. So currently I teach at a K-5 school. Ironically, I was around the same age, 5th or 6th grade, when I first met Coach Bryant. And just a few weeks ago, a moment with one of my students made me reflect on what Coach Bryant really did for us and why his leadership matters more than ever today. All right. The moment that brought it all back. During after-school activities, one of the 5th grade boys who I've known for 3 years, who plays football, who reminds me a lot of myself, blurted out, "Black Lives Matter." I calmly replied to him. I said, "All lives matter." He shot back at me and said, "Oh, you're one of those." And right then, I had to end the conversation. Not because I was upset, but because he's not old enough. because he's not old enough yet for me to pull out the proverbial baseball bat and school his little ass. So instead, I stored it in my memory, and now I'm honoring it with this piece, because what that boy lacked in that moment is exactly what Coach Bryant gave us. Let me break that down for a little bit, because I want to make sure I'm looking at you directly and talking to you directly when I break this whole thing down. So it's after school. And again, this particular boy, I've known him for 3 years now. I've been to multiple of his multiple games in which he played football. I'm not going to put, he might not even, I don't think he's going to be playing. Well, his mom. So his mom works at the school, and I've gotten to know the mom, and we've actually, now that I'm thinking about, man, me and his mom have actually worked table setups for the school. We've had conversation outside of the school. I mean, we've known each other the same amount of time, and at the end of the day, sometimes I feel like, hey, I'm just as in it with her as she is, because she's as open, as transparent between her other daughter that comes to the school. I was with her daughter, when they were in second grade, and we built a solid enough of a friendship at this point to where I see them as kids that I love just as much. I don't, obviously not as much as the mother, but I have a lot of love for those two, especially considering that they were the start of this thing. The school I teach at is a startup school, and they were at the start of this thing. And to see now he's going to be graduating in a couple of weeks, I can't believe I'm actually kind of befuddled now to see these young kids just grow up. And that's what happens, right? And when you look at these young kids' eyes, you do have a great deal of love for them. My girl tells me all the time, it's like, I didn't realize how attached to them I get in my own life, and in terms of how much time I spent with them and stuff like that. But anyway, he had mentioned, because he's getting older, and he's becoming a man. He's about to be in middle school, so he's getting his own opinion. He's developing his own opinion and all this stuff, and he's hearing these things. And this is why I mentioned 2020 being that summer of social justice, and a lot of the kids just being confused on what Black leadership is all about. He blurts out, "Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter." And we know my feelings about that organization, that scam of an organization. I hear that, and I naturally tell him, no, all lives matter. And then he looks at me like one of these ignorant adults that look at me and tell me, oh, you're one of those. You're one of those people. You're one of those Black guys that say, oh, all lives matter. I'm like, what? Like, mentally, again, I can't say this because he's a kid, but mentally, I'm like, what the fuck do you mean I'm one of those little, but instead I filter myself, I zip it, I just say, okay, you're not old enough for me to really take the baseball bat out and knock your ass out. You don't have to have that conversation, right? So I store it in my head. I put it down, I write it down on paper, I have my notepad, and now I'm going to be talking about and breaking it down. So this is what the boy did not have. And this is coming from, not only myself, but also his mother has expressed, look, some of his coaches are not on the level of what Coach Bryant did for us, because you got to understand, and this is for young youth coaches out there, you are not coaching NFL players. You are not coaching boys who are the majority of these kids, especially if we're talking about youth football coaching, the majority of the kids who play youth football are not even going to be good enough to play at their high school. All right. So you can't run around like you're just coaching guys that are coaching kids that are going to ultimately become some great football player one day. You got to get out of your own damn ego and start looking at these boys as, hey, they're going to just become members of society. Talk to them about some of the problems that you're going to have in life in general. Talk to them about what's going to be the issue with the bills and how you're going to put equity and create assets, and don't spend your money on chains and jewelry and all that other bullshit. Like the men I had, like the coaches I had between Coach Bryant and this guy right here and the yellow Coach Bobby. Listen, they used to have these conversations. I mean, we would spend nights at Coach Bobby's house at times, and I'll never forget those car rides where Coach Bobby would be telling us, man, when you go to college, don't spend your time on a bunch of basket weaving classes and a bunch of bullshit, man. Take some shit that's going to benefit your life. Take some business courses, man. Use football as a fucking opportunity to get yourself together, to get yourself a quality education, to make it so you actually do something productive with your life. Okay. Don't go out and be one of these people that you see on TV, these rappers, these famous athletes, and blow your money on Ferraris and Maseratis, just stupid shit. All right. I had men like that teaching and preaching all of that stuff, implementing all of that stuff in me. All right. So when I see a young boy who was I was around his age, this is me around his age, telling me some bullshit about, oh, you're one of those. You're one of those. It's moments like that where it hits me, and I say, oh man, I owe Coach Bryant a lot. I owe the Coach Bryants of the world a lot because of what they instilled in the mindset that I have. All of that stuff comes out. All right. So Coach Bryant, back to the article. For my podcast listeners, back to the article directly. All right. Coach Bryant and the day that changed my life. Calling him the best coach I ever had comes with context. All right. I might be a little biased. So yes, I'm 1000% fair. The year before I arrived, I was a team captain when one of our coaches collapsed. Not one, actually it was our head coach. Our head coach, I get emotional every time I think about it, but I was a team captain when one of our coaches collapsed and died of a heart attack on the field. I'm gonna say real quick so I don't get thrown off. So to this day, every time I say it out loud or write it, the chills run down my spine. So again, I put it there, but I'm gonna say it quick so I don't get off task there. So then came Coach Bryant. So after that happened, Coach Bryant, and with him a foundation that would shape everything I stand for today. So when Coach Bryant first got to coaching us, he introduced us to an acronym, W.A.T.E.R, W-A.T.E.R. All right. Work ethic, attitude, teamwork, enthusiasm, and respect. That is exactly the way we broke down huddles, the way we broke it down at the end of every practice, the way we broke everything down. Water, 1, 2, 3, water, work ethic, attitude, teamwork, enthusiasm, and respect. That was the very first thing that he came in preaching to us. All right. Does that sound familiar? My entire brand is built on Swiftly, SWIFTLY, skilled, well-informed, front team, lift yourself. Yeah, he was my favorite for a reason. All right, he was my favorite for a reason. All right, but the moment I'll never forget. It wasn't a play. It wasn't a win. It wasn't a weight we lifted. It was a speech. All right, we were wrapping up a long practice. Coach gathered us and said, "Hey, listen, there are no niggas out here. There's no N words." Again, I'm not, because I don't know if I might get demonetized if I say the word. So I'm going to use the word N word, right? He goes, "There's no N words out here." It stopped us. I'll actually, you know what? Let me give you the full context. I got to give you the full context because we're all on a knee. We're all on a knee, right? It's just like this. We're all on a knee, and he's preaching. He's out here talking, and he looks out. He goes, "Hey, there's no N words out here. We don't use the N words out here on the football field. We're not using that. We're not doing that out here." Listen to me, man. Listen to me. Okay. He made it a point to tell us that as young boys. And as you can see, it had a huge effect because this was the time in which we are coming up, where we're young football players and we're jamming to all the DMX, the Jay-Z, everyone's using the N-word. You're cool when you use it, but when you hear another black man who is out there coaching us up and then saying that, now as kids, we take that lesson in and we realize, okay, maybe the rappers ain't just, maybe we might like the sound of their music, or we could, use it to get hype and preach it before the game or sing it before a game or get whatever. But our coach taught us, hey, you're not going to run around using that word because, we're here to play a game, and that there's some things that come with using that word that we as young black men don't really understand yet. There's complex issues, there's stereotypes, there's things that are being said about us that we don't even know what's going on. And we're sitting around using a word because our favorite rapper used it. Do you understand the importance of that lesson that we have that is given to us as young kids? Do you understand how important that is? That's important shit. That's important shit that you got to take, that you got to really show your appreciation for, and you won't know it until later on in life. So as adults, it's our job to make sure, right, we're doing what we got to do to protect the future and break these generational curses that we see every day. I cannot believe in 2025, we're sitting here still talking about Black fatigue, given all the opportunities that us as Black folks have paved the way for us. And we're honoring a George Floyd, let me not bring that part up. Well, I'm going to get off topic. All right. So I'm going back directly to the article right now. So it stopped us cold. We were young. Rappers were glorifying the word. It was woven into our everyday speech, our music, our jokes. Most of us had no idea where it came from, what it truly meant, how deep the wood ran. All right. How deep it would ran. All right. So, or how deep it was, how deep the wound, excuse me. All right. Let me read it because I'm getting fired up. All right. We were young. Rappers were glorifying the word. It was woven into our everyday speech, our music, our jokes. Most of us had no idea where it came from, what it truly meant, or how deep the wound, like wounded, ran, how deep it ran, how much the wound really hurt. When you hear people, when some people hear that N word, they're thinking of other Black men being lynched and, hanging from trees and being called that word. That wound, when you hear it, it can hurt some people. It can hurt your grandparents, your Black grandparents who may have known some people that were dealing with slavery, and they're hearing that word in a derogatory fashion, and someone's calling them the N word with that hard ER at the end, and it can hurt people when they hear any reminiscence of the word. And if we're using it as a way of glorifying and kind of making it so we're being we use it as a term of endearment and stuff like that, that can hit a different kind of wound. In fact, I'll never forget when Jay-Z, in fact, went on the Oprah show. Jay-Z went on the Oprah show, and they just agreed to disagree on how to use the word. Because, again, as Jay-Z, my favorite rapper, I listen to his music all the time, he said, look, now we use it as a word of endearment. Oprah, another thought leader, another two heavy honchos in the world of just Black leadership, celebrities, and all that kind of stuff. And Oprah's thinking, hey, I'm thinking of, Black people being hung by trees and being lynched and being whooped and being used that word. And you can hear it. You can see it on the show. They both just agreed to disagree. They both agreed to disagree. I remember actually watching that with my sister, and my sister was like, yeah, man, Jay-Z went on Oprah and disagreed, dog. Because my sister was the type that had, posters of rappers and Tupac and all of that stuff was in her room. Like, my room was filled with football, like pictures of football players on my wall. And then when you go to my sister's room, it was like all the rappers and stuff like that on her wall. And, she would be jamming to the albums and all that. That's just the way it was. Right. So, all right. So Coach Bryant, so how deep the wound ran. All right, I'm going back to the article now, guys. So, but I was in that. Actually, that brings me to, I'll close out the article and then I'll get to the question. So, but I was raised in a home where I was taught the history of that word and why it should never be normalized. And what Coach Bryant did that day, he wasn't just banning a word, he was planting a standard. He was teaching the R in water, respect, right? He was drawing the line between what society let slide and what we were going to demand from each other. He wasn't just coaching a football team, he was building a culture. Why it still matters today, and I'll get to the questions why after I read this part, okay? The same culture is what I try to bring into my classroom, but I'll be honest, it's hard. I work with a team of people I don't align with. Our worldviews clash. It shows up in staff meetings. It shows up in energy. And it shows up when a 5th grade boy calls me one of those, okay, one of those for standing on values. So me saying all lives matter, not Black lives matter. A 5th grade boy tells me I'm one of those for standing on values. Do you see why it still matters today? You see why it still matters? Because with my worldview clashing with other folks' worldview, this ultimately affects the children, all right? But I wouldn't change a thing, all right? I'm going directly back to the article, guys, because I'm telling you directly. I wouldn't change a damn thing about it. That tension, it sharpens me. It brings me back to the football field, to Coach Bryant, to everything he instilled in us. I lean into it because comfort is not the goal. The opposite of fatigue is foundation. It's what we're calling Black fatigue in today's headlines. It's a symptom of a missing foundation. It's what happens when you grow up without someone like Coach Bryant telling you you are not an N-word. All right. You will show each other respect. You will work, lead, and raise and rise like men. All right. And when the guidance is gone, what fills the void? Excuses, entitlement, emotional manipulation, empty slogans with no strategy behind them. That's not growth. That's spiritual decay. Final word, Coach Bryant, thank you. Coach Bryant, if you're reading this, I love you. I thank you. Tearing up as I write this. You didn't just give us discipline. You gave us dignity. You didn't just coach us. You fathered us in moments when we needed a man to show us how it's done. Everything I do today, the business I'm building, the content I put out, the standard I hold my students to traces back to you. You showed me the power of clarity, the weight of words, and the importance of respect. You showed me what a Win-Trapreneur looks like before I had the word for it. And that's why the story had to be told. Period, point blank, end of sentence. Period. That was from the heart, because those were the moments. In moments like that, 5th grade boy, I just lose my coach to who passed away on the field. He shows up and is confident as ever and saying, this is how we're going to do things out here. That's what we got to show. You never know what you can be to a young boy. So you got to show up every single day, folks. Every single day. You know what? Let me get to the questions, because I'm gonna start moving. I'm gonna start moving out here. Let me get to the questions. I'm gonna get to the questions now. We got about 5 minutes. I like to keep these within 45 minutes. So I am working towards doing that. All right. All right, let's get to the questions here. All right, so how can so basically what I do when it comes to the questions, so you guys do know, I take the article and I put it in the ChatGPT, and I basically ask ChatGPT to generate 5 questions that a business owner who is struggling with turnover create those 5 questions. So it's me answering them on camera, so you guys can take this part of it, and you can use it for your own businesses. And you can, again, make sure you like and comment, subscribe. And this is an everyday thing we do around here. So first question is, how can I align my employees' roles with their personal visions to foster a sense of purpose and reduce turnover? All right. So you have to ask. You have to act. You do have an obligation as a business owner to make sure the profits are where they need to be, the money's coming in. But when you have people who are loyal, people that are showing up, you have to ask their personal vision for what they want their company to be. All right. So I'll give you an example. This is back when I first got to Florida. I worked at an Orange Theory Fitness. I was a sales associate for an Orange Theory Fitness. And I was asked by the person who was the hiring manager. He said, hey, is there anything that you would do if you see yourself growing when it comes to Orange Theory? And I was joking. I was joking, but not joking when I said, so my goal is actually to marry a professional cheerleader one day. They started laughing because they saw the connection between, the Orange Theory girls that actually come. I mean, not the Orange Theory, but the people who were former cheerleaders. They're coming in and they're teaching the Orange Theory class, and I'm selling the Orange Theory memberships, and I'm already on my mindset that this is how we're gonna get money and all that. So I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but not tongue in cheek. When you are in the position of hiring, you have to actually ask the person who you're hiring, what's your personal vision for your life? And let's see if we can establish a connection, because you doing that is going to make it so you all have a better relationship. Like me and shout out, it was actually Drew who hired me. I remember he was, me and him actually became really cool friends. He's not with the company anymore, but we became really cool during my time there, because that's how the interview was. And you ask that question. So that part of you have to ask is something that can get overlooked. All right. Question number 2. Am I providing mentorship and leadership that instills discipline and strong work ethic, similar to Coach Bryant Davis's approach? Only you can answer that. It depends on the culture and what you're selling, because providing mentorship and leadership is not being a simp. All right. Not just telling people when they're doing well. All right. Providing mentorship and leadership is really getting up in people's behinds when when they're on some bullshit. All right. When they're on some bullshit, you got to tell them when they're on some bullshit with guts. You have to tell them that, because when the compliments come and the praise do come, it's not going to mean anything if you haven't cussed their behind out before, right? The thing is with Coach Bryant is there were times where he started dropping those 4-letter words and really get up in our behind. So when we got the compliments, when we got the, oh man, good play, great practice, it meant a lot. You didn't have to do a whole lot when you're providing strong mentorship and leadership, because when you get up in people's behind and then you give a compliment, okay, now that was real, because they don't just go around, because in your mind, that person doesn't just go around giving out compliments like that. All right. So next question, we're on question number 3 here, podcast listeners. What steps can I take to create a workplace culture that challenges negative stereotypes and promotes inclusivity? So if you can, depending on the company, I think using sponsorship, using the fact that there's companies that go and sponsor these teams, using the fact that you're sponsoring team without just giving money and putting a banner up. But the steps you can take is using that sponsorship dollars to really connect with the mission of the program. So like, for example, speaking of Orange Theory, one of the things that they did is they sponsored it was a softball tournament. I think it was like the opening day for a baseball game. They sponsored it, and I was there setting up the table and all that. What they could, and this is what I would have suggested that they did, or anybody does, is when you pay the money to be a sponsor for these teams, okay, establish a connection. Actually, one of the things I did follow up with, now that I'm thinking, because one of the members, he was part of the board for this particular baseball team or the committee or whatever. What you have to do now is figure out how you can incorporate what you are doing at Orange Theory with the mission of the baseball team, whether it's just giving all the parents a discount on membership, or having a trainer come out and do some things with the kids workout wise, or bring certain heart rate monitors to the kids when they're working out. Do things that are going to incorporate to make it more so go from sponsorship to partnership. Because when you talk about workplace culture, when I talk about making sure your staff moves like a cohesive team, this is what starts happening. You can look at the major ones, the Nikes, the Under Armours, the Adidas. You see the same kind of principles, the same things that are coming up every day in that culture that leads to something that's cohesive and conducive to growth. All right. Number 4, how can I support my employees in developing a Win-Trapreneur mindset that combines with stability and the entrepreneurial vision? That goes back to the number 1 thing. First of all, you have to know what a Win-Trapreneur means, which again, that's why you bring me in to come and implement the system. But also, you have got to ask. If it doesn't come, if the question is not coming out directly in terms of what the employee wants out of the opportunity, if that question is not coming out directly, it's not going to get answered directly. So you need to make sure you're asking it so you can implement strategies and implement tactics that is going to make it so everyone feels like they're being heard in their organization. And finally, last question, in what ways can I recognize and nurture the unique talents and aspirations of my employees to build on more engaged and dedicated teams? Recognize it, but do not patronize it. All right. Recognize, but don't patronize. In fact, I might have to jot that one down. I'm taking credit. Recognize, but don't patronize. All right. Recognize it. Hey, great job doing X, Y, and Z. But don't simple, oh my God, that's such a great job. You're doing such a great. No, recognize the thing they did that was great and then move on. But don't go around just acting like everything they do is great and they're just perfect. That's called patronization. Okay, recognizing, not patronizing it. There's 2 separate things. All right, be sure you're doing that and not patronizing it, because that can go from recognizing something to becoming very offensive to somebody who actually knows their shit. Like for me, I get offended all the time when people, hey man, that was a good job. It's like, no shit. That's why I got hired, right? Shit, it was a good job. That's what I'm supposed to do. In fact, I'll close you out with this story because one of my favorite coaches, in the NFL is a Mike Tomlin. And I remember he had meant I listened to like a ton of his press conferences and stuff like that. So there was something that he had mentioned about being on film and knowing how a certain player or team does when this one's in. And he just spit it out in a press conference. He spit out one of the stats, and one of the reporters like sarcastically goes, "Man, you're right on point with that. That's exactly how it does." And he looks at me and goes, "That's what the Rooney's paid me for." Everyone in the room starts laughing, and you just see Mike Tomlin's face like, right. So make sure you're recognizing, not patronizing, recognizing these things. All right. So all that being said, again, tomorrow we're going to recap the whole black fatigue thing. We're going to go talk from Monday to Tuesday to yesterday to today. Going to recap everything and then move on to the topic. Go back to Faith-Based Friday. Don't forget, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Check out, it's makeyourmove.com is the main website to check out to dive deeper into all the work I'm doing. One-stop shop for your teamwork and your self-development needs. As Warren Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, checking out. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.